Airports don't slow down for anyone. That's just the truth of them, loud, crowded, everyone somewhere to be. And on this particular day, a Korean billionaire was about to walk right past a woman who desperately needed help. He almost made it. Then something stopped him. Something tiny. Something that didn't even have words yet. Thousands of people moved in every direction, dragging luggage, shouting into phones, watching the departure boards like they might disappear. It was the kind of place built on motion, on urgency, on getting through. Nobody stood still. Except her. Her carry-on bag had slipped off her shoulder and was just sitting there on the floor. Her face was pale, not tired pale, something worse. The kind of pale that means your body is working hard at something it won't tell you about out loud. She was breathing carefully, deliberately, like each breath was a small negotiation. One hand stayed on her belly. She didn't reach for the bag, didn't move toward the nearest seat. She just stood there, 8 months pregnant, in the middle of 10,000 people all rushing somewhere that wasn't here. People saw her. Of course they saw her. And they kept walking. Around her like she was a pillar or a trash can or a wall. Seamless, automatic, nobody breaking stride. And then at the far end of the terminal, he appeared. Tall, composed, expensive in a way that didn't announce itself, it didn't have to. He had the walk of someone who has never once had to wonder if there was room for him, like the floor was laid specifically for him and everyone else was just passing through. He slowed, then kept going. He didn't stop.
Before we go further, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country below.
His name was Kang Joon-seo. He ran an empire most people had never heard of, and that was deliberate. He liked it that way. At airports, people didn't just notice him. They moved for him. His assistant walked exactly 3 paces behind. His security detail kept a perimeter so practiced it was almost invisible. He moved through spaces the way gravity moves, without asking, without explaining. When he went somewhere, things arranged themselves around him. So when his eye caught the woman standing alone at gate 14, something registered. He slowed barely, just a fraction, then his brain filed her away. Shape, position, possible problem, not his department. He almost stopped. Almost. Not his concern. He told himself that, and kept walking.
He hadn't always been this way, but the man who used to feel things, really feel them, had been buried slowly, one boardroom at a time, one betrayal at a time, until keeping his distance from people just felt normal, expected, safe.
Her name was Nyla Carter, 29 years old, 8 months pregnant, flying alone because there was no one left to fly with her. Her mother had died 6 months ago. Her husband, the one who swore he'd be at every appointment, every scan, every single moment, had left 4 months after that. The timing was so cruel it was almost funny. Almost. She was flying back to Atlanta from a job interview in Seoul. A long shot, honestly, more like an act of desperation, one last attempt to build something stable before the baby got here and made everything harder. The interview had felt okay, she thought. But now, sitting in the terminal at Incheon International, her lower back was on fire, and the walk from check-in had taken basically everything she had. She tried asking for help. She tried. An airline worker gave her a warm smile and pointed at a help desk across the terminal. "If you can just make your way over there, ma'am." She couldn't make her way over there. A businessman in a gray suit glanced at her bag, then at his watch. "I'm sorry," he said, and kept walking. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded like she'd inconvenienced him. A woman with a toddler on her hip looked at Nyla with real sympathy. "The kind that means I see you, and I want to help, and I genuinely cannot," and hurried toward her gate. Quick apologies, even quicker exits. No one stopped, not one person. Thousands of people, and she was completely alone. She lowered herself onto a bench, slowly, carefully, and pressed her lips together tight. "It's okay," she whispered, not to anyone listening, to the baby. "We're going to be okay." She wasn't sure she believed it, but she said it anyway. Joon-seo was at the private lounge, maybe 40 feet away, when his assistant paused mid-step. "Sir," Park Soo-jin didn't interrupt without a reason, ever. "The woman by the gate, she hasn't moved in 20 minutes. He didn't look up from his phone. "That's not our concern. She looks like she's in pain. Then she should contact airport staff." Soo-jin didn't push it. She'd worked with him long enough to know when that door was closed. But something, he couldn't name it, couldn't explain it, made him look up anyway. The woman was at the edge of the bench now, both hands gripping the seat, face turned toward the floor. Her lips were moving, talking to herself maybe, or praying. Her bag was still exactly where it had dropped. Nobody was stopping. The terminal moved around her like she wasn't even there. He looked back at his phone. Board call in 40 minutes, a merger pending his sign-off, 3 unread messages from his lawyer in Singapore. He started typing a reply. He looked up again. She hadn't moved. He put the phone away, then picked it up again, then put it down. He should have gone back to the lounge. He didn't. The man who never paused, and he had absolutely no reasonable explanation for it. He told himself he was just walking past. Different route back to the lounge, checking the departure board. Any of the small, efficient lies we tell ourselves when we don't want to admit something is pulling us. He slowed as he got closer, then slower still. He was 4 feet away when he stopped. She hadn't looked up, still focused on the floor, still managing her breathing, still in the middle of whatever quiet conversation with herself was keeping her together. He stood there for a moment, just standing, not speaking, longer than he expected. Part of him was already calculating the exit, the practical sentence forming in his head, the reason he could give himself for turning around and going back. He was about to say something clipped and practical, something about airport services and medical staff, when it happened. The baby moved. A small shape pressed outward against the fabric of her dress. Visible, unmistakable, alive. Nyla's hand flew to her belly, instinct, not thought. And in that same motion, her eyes still down, her breathing still careful, she reached sideways. Without looking. Without thinking. She found his hand in the space beside her and placed it there. His palm, flat against the warmth of her. A beat of silence. And the baby pushed back. Into his hand, against his hand. A small, steady pressure, like something that needed to be felt, had finally found somewhere to land. He didn't pull away. His fingers, without being told, curled gently around the shape. The airport didn't stop. Announcements still crackled overhead. Luggage still rolled across the marble. People still rushed past in every direction. None of that touched him right now. Kang Joon-seo, the man who had walked past her, the billionaire who never stopped for anything, stood completely still. He looked down at her hand holding his. He looked at the shape of the baby pressing against her dress. And something in him broke open, quietly, without drama, the way ice breaks in spring, not a crack, just a slow, irreversible giving way. He had a sister once. Min-jae, 7 years younger. She was pregnant with her first child during the worst year of his career, the year the company nearly collapsed, the year he was so buried in crisis mode that he didn't answer her calls the way he should have. She never said he failed her. That wasn't who she was, but he knew. The way people who love each other always know, even when nothing gets said out loud. Min-jae lived in Busan now, with her husband and their daughter, a little girl named So-yeon, who was 5 and drew him pictures he kept in a drawer he never opened, because opening it felt like too much. He was still holding this stranger's hand. And he wasn't moving. This man, the one who had built a whole empire on not feeling things that cost him time, stood at the edge of himself and looked down. He was starting to understand what that had cost him instead. Nyla finally looked up. Her eyes, dark, exhausted, quietly fierce, found his. She registered who he was, or rather what he was. Expensive suit, no softness in his face, the posture of someone who is never uncertain about anything. She almost pulled her hand back. Don't, he said, low voice. His Korean accent gave the word a careful shape. Don't apologize, don't move. She stared at him, not sure what she was looking at. Are you in pain? He asked. A long pause, pride fighting honesty. Honesty won. Yes, she said quietly. He turned to Soo-jin, who had materialized 3 feet behind him with the silent efficiency of someone who had been watching all of this unfold and had already predicted where it was going. Get medical staff here, now. Same voice he used in boardrooms, the one that moves mountains and quarterly projections. Soo-jin was already on her phone before the sentence finished. He crouched down in front of Nyla, this man in a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and looked at her directly. Not past her. At her. When did the pain start? About an hour ago. It's not, I don't think it's labor, but you're not sure. She exhaled slowly. I'm not sure. He nodded once, filing it carefully. What is your name? Nyla Carter. Nyla, he said it like someone saying a word they want to hold on to. I'm Joon-seo. You're not going to be alone right now, okay? Do you understand me? She studied his face. She was looking for the angle, the reason behind it, the motive underneath. The people in her recent life had trained her to look for those things. She didn't find one. Okay, she said softly. The airport medics arrived 7 minutes later. Not 4. 7 because the first one who responded glanced at Nyla, took in the bench, the bag, the careful expression she'd taught herself to wear, and made a quiet, wrong assumption about how serious this was. Ma'am, are you experiencing contractions or? She is 8 months pregnant. She has been in pain for over an hour, and she has been sitting here alone because no one stopped. Joon-seo's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It simply became the kind of voice that closes every other conversation in a room. The medic looked at him, then at Nyla. Something shifted in his approach. Of course, let's take a proper look. It was the first time Joon-seo had spoken with anything close to real feeling in longer than he could place. He noticed that. He filed it away, but differently than he usually filed things. A wheelchair came. The private lounge, the one with actual comfortable chairs and actual quiet, was made available. Soo-jin produced water, a blanket, and Nyla's bag from the floor, all without being asked. The baby moved again. This time Joon-seo saw it, that small wave of movement just beneath the surface, and something on his face shifted, not quite a smile, but in the same neighborhood as one. She's strong, he said, almost to himself. She is, Nyla agreed, a beat. How do you know it's a she? I don't, he said. I guessed. It was the closest thing to warmth she'd heard from him. It landed strangely, like light coming through a window in a room that had been dark for a long time. The medics confirmed it wasn't labor. Early contractions, stress, and dehydration, manageable. They gave her fluids, made her rest, got her rebooked on the next departure with better seating. Joon-seo stayed until they were done. He didn't make a thing of it, didn't perform it. He just stayed. The way you stay when leaving would feel wrong, even if you can't explain why. Before he left for his own gate, he paused at the door. He stood there a moment, hand resting on the frame, back still turned. Then he turned around. Your interview, he said. In Seoul, who was it with? Nyla told him. He nodded once, said nothing more, and left. 3 days later, back in Atlanta, she got a call from the company. Not a rejection. An offer, a generous one, with the option to work remotely for the first year. She never knew for certain what happened behind the scenes. But she had a feeling. In that airport, the one where she'd been invisible, where the whole world had moved around her like she wasn't there, everything had changed. Not because of a grand gesture, not because wealth came in and fixed everything like a fairy tale ending. Because a baby pressed outward against the inside of a very cold world and reminded one man, briefly, of everything he had decided not to feel. The baby was born 6 weeks later. Healthy, loud, absolutely certain of her own importance in the room, the way newborns always are. Nyla held her for the first time and thought about the airport. The bench, the bag on the floor, the hand she had reached for without thinking, and the hand that had, somehow, reached back. She named her Ava June. The second name given quietly, privately, with no expectation it would ever reach the person it honored. No letter written, no message sent. Just a name, carried forward. Some things you hold as remembrance, not as debt. That's enough. That has always been enough.
This isn't just a story about one act of kindness in a busy airport. It goes deeper than that. It's about the walls we build around ourselves and the unexpected moments that quietly knock them down. Joon-seo had everything the world calls success and still walked past someone suffering, not because he was evil, because efficiency had slowly, quietly replaced conscience. It happens to a lot of us, more than we like to admit. It wasn't a speech or a dramatic scene that reached him. It was a baby, tiny, wordless, completely without agenda. Children cut through the layers we built. They get to the part of us that existed before the world taught us to protect ourselves from it. Joon-seo wasn't born cold. He became cold, one unanswered phone call at a time, one closed drawer at a time. Most people who seem unreachable got that way for a reason. Nyla never begged. She never collapsed into it. She carried her struggle with quiet strength. And in a world that measures worth by status, that kind of endurance is its own form of power. The world moves fast. Airports move faster. But some moments, small, quiet, unhurried, they change people. Not loudly, not with applause, just permanently. Have you ever been the person who was ignored, or the person who almost walked past someone and didn't? What made you stop? Or what do you wish had made you stop? Tell us in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Red, if you've ever seen someone change in a single moment, press like, because moments like this don't happen often, and they deserve to be remembered. Nell, share this story. Leave a comment below.